the big barrier here is that we have no idea what consciousness is.
What is up, guys? Pastor John here. Welcome to my channel, Man of God, where we draw closer to Christ to become the men that God desires us to be. Today, we are going to be looking at a short podcast clip from Dr. Sean McDowell, who is one of my favorite podcasters. He's a professor at Biola and an apologist. He's written many books. I was thinking about this channel and where I wanted to go with it, and I like the videos that I've made, but I want to expand it, and I want to start looking at some podcast clips to just, pique conversation, make us think. We don't all have time to listen to full podcasts, so I thought put a clip out there, and if you want, you can watch the whole thing, but if not, it's still a nice little gem of info to make you think about the world, make you think of culture, philosophy, science, and how it relates to faith and our walk with Christ. Today, we are looking at the question of AI and consciousness. And Sean McDowell, in this podcast, he is interviewing John Lennox, which probably most people have heard about John Lennox, but he is awesome. If you never watched his stuff, watch it now. He has tons of books, and just listening to his voice makes me happy. And the title of this podcast is AI and the Fate of Humanity. And they're talking about kind of where AI is going, because John Lennox is just published a book called 2084, kind of a play on 1984, Artificial Intelligence and the Future of Humanity. And this clip that I have is about what is consciousness. What is the difference between a machine like ChatGPT and a human who is aware of themselves? I'll play the clip, and then I'll just kind of have a little bit at the end, but just pique your thinking here.
Yeah. Artificial intelligence, narrow AI for the benefit of humanity, and there are others like her.
That's a really helpful distinction between AI and AGI. You talked about some of the reasons or the barriers philosophically from AI becoming AGI. I had a debate maybe, 4 or 6 months ago with the skeptic Michael Shermer about the origin of consciousness. And he referred to it as an emergent property. And he said inflation, for example, emerges in a complex system. Maybe consciousness emerges like that. Well, as I was reading your book, you talked about how in AI, there's new emergent faculties that emerge. Like you teach AI a general skill, and then all of a sudden it learns these particular skills. We don't know how or why it emerged. Could that explain the origin of consciousness? That somehow it just emerges from complexity in a way we can't explain? Is that plausible? Why or why not?
Well, I know Michael Shermer. I've debated him several times. And the big barrier here is that we have no idea what consciousness is. And it's a very relevant, it's called the hard problem in psychology. It's very relevant to ask it, because the amazing thing about human beings like ourselves is that God has united consciousness with humanity. He's put consciousness together with intelligence. Now, in AI, you've got intelligence without consciousness. And until somebody tells me what it is in scientific terms and they can build it, I remain totally skeptical. I think the word emergent is a very misleading, or can be a very misleading word. And I always ask, it emerges how? Does it emerge naturally from what you've got, or does it need a catalyst? Or does it need additional intellectual and intelligent input, and so on? I remember once having a spat with Dawkins in a public meeting very many years ago, where he talked about word processing being an emergent an emergent phenomenon of a computer. And I said, it emerges only by very clever programming from a human intelligence. In fact, it's a very good example of intelligent design. It doesn't emerge on its own at all. And I think we've got to push back on that kind of emergence. It can cover a multitude of evils, and it's used by many people. And sometimes they have to say, well, it does emerge, but you need a catalyst, or you need an extra input of information, or you need this and you need that, and you need the other thing. So I'm very leery of its use on its own. And neither Michael Shermer nor anybody else has the faintest idea how anything that is material can carry something on it, in it, around it, that is aware of itself. We just know nothing. And until we know something from a scientific attitude, I remain even more skeptical of that than Michael Shermer is of the Christian faith.
That's really fair. In some ways, I think emergent is a somewhat fancy word to say we have no explanation how this phenomena emerges. It just emerges. It's really like magic, as I see it. And I think there's a difference between an effect and between a cause. Now, we could unpack that further, and you have a great section in your book on that.
There's a difference between an effect and a cause. Does consciousness just come from a variety of complex factors working together, or is there something more to it? I think science, as long as science has one miracle, it can explain everything else, but that kind of refutes science, right? Like the Big Bang Theory, which I have no issue with, right? But Joe Rogan just recently, he's like, what was before, and how did like this little speck of material expand into everything? And he actually said, I choose, the resurrection of Jesus over that.
Did God make this?
Or is God the universe?
Yeah, but then who made God? And then that bothers me.
Right, but
who made that thing?
Is that a thing that we think that, like, because we were born and we die, that we have these biological limitations that we attach to the universe itself?
That's fair. That we see things as being built and destroyed.
That there's always been something. Well, wouldn't it be crazier if there wasn't something at one point in time? That seems even crazier. Then there always has been something. Because if it's just something, if it's just the nature of everything, there is always something, right?
Right.
It couldn't be nothing and then all of a sudden everything. That seems...
Because what started that? What kicked that off?
Exactly.
What snapped its fingers?
That's McKenna's great line. Terence McKenna had a great line about the difference between science and religion is that science only asks you for one miracle. I want you to believe in one miracle, the Big Bang.
Yeah. That's a good one.
It's a great line.
Yeah.
It's because it really is true.
Yes.
And it's funny because people would be incredulous about the resurrection of Jesus Christ, but yet they're convinced that the entire universe was smaller than the head of a pin, and for no reason that anybody's adequately explained to me makes sense.
Yeah. No.
Instantaneously became everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't buy that.
I'm sticking with Jesus on that one. Like, Jesus makes more sense.
It makes a hell of a lot more sense.
People have come back to life. Like, in fact, you were one of your videos.
And I don't think you have to necessarily pick. Science and faith can go together really well. It's just when you only have science, you're really reaching for straws because you're trying to define these things that can't really be defined by the material realm. How can you have consciousness in a material brain when the consciousness is outside of the brain? I mean, the brain is, affecting the consciousness, but you can think of yourself in like a third person, like from a different view than your body. And it is the hard problem in psychology. What do you think? I think it's a interesting thing and something we'll continue to talk about as AI expands. Will consciousness just come out of nowhere from ChatGPT and we'll just discover its origin, or is it something greater than that? I believe it's something greater than that, because I believe consciousness requires, like Dr. Lennox said, intelligent design. Drop your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks to everybody who's subscribed. We're up to like 30 guys, and that's just awesome. So I'll leave you with this blessing. May the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Until next time.